Good morning and welcome back to my channel. This is a new angle and my name is Anna. If this is your first time here, this channel is about books, anything about books, anything I want to read, anything I'm planning on reading. What am I afraid of reading? So yeah, you'll hear a lot about books. Sometimes maybe about my planner, because it is that time of the year, but mostly books. So in my last video, I told you that I would come back and tell you about my thoughts and feelings about Jose Saramago's Skylight. This was Jose Saramago's first novel, but published after his death. So first novel, which he wrote, I believe, when he was in his 20s. And after his death, it was finally published. I went through the history behind it in my first video, but just a quick recap. He wrote it when he was in his 20s, like I said. He sent it out to a publisher to get it published, and it was lost. So it was eventually found, I believe, sometime in the 70s. I don't remember the year exactly, but at that point, he did not want to publish it. He felt like he was no longer the man that he had been when he wrote the novel, and he just didn't want it published. After his death, his sons, I don't know if sons or son, published it. So I believe it came out in the 70s. Don't quote me on it. I'm not 100% sure. This is the English translation. I believe it was translated in 2014. So the novel was written in a time when Portugal was going through the Salazar regime, which I believe it was a communist regime. There was a lot of poverty in Lisbon. Well, actually, no, but there was a lot of poverty in Lisbon, and there was a lot of feeling like despair, and that nothing was worth it, right? So, keeping all that in mind, the building, in my view, the building was a mirror of what was going on outside in the world. So the story takes place fully inside of this building. And I'm just going to say it's this building because that's how I envisioned it. There are 4 floors, maybe 5 floors. Each floor holds 1 or 2 families. It felt to me like the level of the floor was in relationship to the lives of the people in that particular floor. So for example, there was, my favorite couple was the cobbler. I believe I think his name was Sylvester, and his wife. Sylvester's a cobbler. He worked out of his home, and they lived on the ground floor. Here in the States, we call it the first floor, or the basement, I guess. It would be the basement. In Lisbon, we call it the first floor. In Portugal, sorry. So they lived on the ground floor, I guess. And then there was, on the top floor, there was a family of a mother, a daughter, an aunt, a mother, 2 daughters, and an aunt. And it felt to me like they were the ones that were better off. There was no need for them to put on airs. They were just who they were. And the story around them was mostly a comparison of how they lived and how the other people lived. There was also a retired prostitute. I thought it was funny, the retired prostitute. who lived on the fourth floor. And I found that interesting because she was retired and she now had a man that took care of her. She lived on the fourth floor. Her apartment apparently was beautiful. She had pretty furniture. She had perfume. She wore heels in the house. But yet she was still no different than everybody else. She still worked for a living. Each person, it felt to me like each person came to the story with their own backstory. They all were just trying to survive. So, like I said, my favorite couple, Sylvester and his wife, at one point taken a tenant because things are too expensive, and his job just isn't covering all the bills. So between the two of them, their friendship and their love was just so visible, and in contrast with some other couples in the building who you could tell there was no love there. There was just hatred. In particular, one of the couples. But I want to talk about Sylvester and his wife, who, her name was Mariana, and they both take in a tenant, his name Abel, and Abel and Sylvester form a relationship. Actually, the three of them form a type of relationship where the couple, Sylvester and Mariana, started to feel like Abel was their son. So they treated him as if he was a part of their own family. You could feel in the book, you could tell their kindness and their love and friendship for each other. And then you can see it, you can feel it when you're reading about when they're spending time together and talking with Abel. The reason I say that it felt to me like the building was a mirror of what was going on outside in society is although everyone had separate lives and everyone had things going on, it just felt like everyone was living the same life. Like everyone was trying to make ends meet. People were doing things that they didn't want to do, like the retired prostitute living or being taken care of by that man to survive, right? And I mean, if we think about it, we do that today. We get up and go to an office that we don't particularly want to go to, because we need to put food on the table, right? But it felt lonely and it felt desperate to see it in Skylight. So there was a funny story. So there was a funny story with Sylvester and Abel, and it kind of showed me how they were feeling towards this tenant who eventually left, because Abel was looking for something better. He was looking for a life where he didn't resign himself to the misery that everyone was living under. But one funny story was Sylvester liked to play checkers, and Abel would come home from wherever he was, because Abel didn't work. He would come home and Sylvester would be sitting at the kitchen table with the checkers all ready for to play games, and he would be so anxious, and he would every time he would hear a door, because it's a building, so there's one main door downstairs. If he heard the door, he would be like all excited, waiting for a bell to come. It just reminded me of a little kid waiting for mom and dad to come home. The book is a sad story about people and people's lives and what happens when people lose their ability to care, because things are so difficult. It's so hard to make ends meet that you no longer care. It's sad. The building is described as, the way the building is described, it shows sadness and resigning yourself, surrendering yourself to circumstances. And that's what it's about. It's about people that have given up. And I loved every minute of it. There was a lot of information and things that I remember family members talking about. But I was too little. I didn't really understand the difficulties that people were going through. But the book brought back some of those conversations that I remember hearing my parents having. So yeah, I am looking forward to hopefully reading more from him. I think I'm going to start with the first book, and I did write a list of his books. Hold on. So I think the next one I'm going to try to find is Land of Sin. And that was the first published book. So I'm going to try that one. Some of the most known ones in the United States or maybe internationally is Blindness. And that's the one that's a dystopian, that was on that dystopian table. I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. The Gospel According to Jesus Christ, I think I've heard that one too. And Balthazar and Blamunda. I think that one is also something that's internationally acclaimed. I will, however, start with Land of Sin, and I'm going to try and find it, and I'll let you know when I do. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is my Federalist projects. Sorry, I have notes on that too. Federalist project, the Federalist number 7, which I read, and I do need to apologize for something that I said in my last video. So for those of you who are new here, my project, which I started a month or two ago, before I started this channel, was to read the Federalist Papers. Not to read it all in one sitting, or not to read it like as if you read a book, but read one paper per week and figure out my thoughts on each paper. So I'm up to Federalist number 7, which was written by Alexander Hamilton. And last week when I talked about Federalist number 6, I said that it was John Jay that wrote it. It was not John Jay. I apologize. It was also Alexander Hamilton. So he wrote 6 and 7. And in Federalist number 6, he's talking to us about how the states should have, how we should have a federal government and why we should have a federal government. And the reasons he gives, and the one that stuck to me mostly because it's very appropriate for today, is because he said we are one people, we have one language, we have one culture. It makes sense to not be divided and be united with one federal government. And the reason he's saying this is because one federal government is going to be able to better protect the country. And he goes into that in Federalist number 7, where he's talking about competitions and the competitive nature of people. And sorry, I'm uncrossing my legs because they're falling asleep. And he argues that human beings are by nature competitive, and human beings make up the states. And that's going to translate to states competing with each other for trade and land and anything that the people within those states are going to need to survive, right? So each state is going to compete with another state for something. So he's saying that having a federal government, one united government to govern the 13 states at the time, would help protect that, help ensure that the states would not compete with each other. So, I see Hamilton as someone who is a pessimist. He looks at what could go wrong, and I think that is important. And I think that's what makes him look what's happened. Look what happened in England. Look how we are already. Because in those days, I believe there was Pennsylvania, Philadelphia was competing for land. And they had already seen that. There was the... So he saw that things could go wrong if we were separate states with no federal government above us. So that was his argument. I think he believed in a strong government, but he also thought that the states needed to have some kind of say. So he wasn't saying, and obviously that's what wound up happening, but he wasn't saying that let's abolish the state government and just do everything at the federal level. But let's just ensure that there is one overarching rule. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a king. It doesn't have to be a person. And obviously that's not what happened. So yeah, I see him as a pessimist. I see him as someone who is looking at the negative and thinking that this could work, but it could also go really wrong. I think he was fiscally conservative because he was talking about taxation and how each state was going to be able to pay taxes or trade with another state. He also saw that a federal government would be able to make things more just and proper. And I think he believed, so I have a note here that says he believed government should be guided by reason and not passion. And I think that's the thing that strikes me the most. He does appear to be a passionate man when he's writing, but he's also very reasonable, and that's what comes across. He's looking at what could go wrong. As passionate as I could be about this new country, or new world, I also know who humans are, and this is what could happen. So I enjoyed Federalist number 7. I think Federalist number 6, talking about how we are one people, matches up more to what's going on around us now. Perhaps number 7 Sorry. Perhaps Federalist number 7 is more wood. And I don't know, I didn't feel that when I read it, but the conversation around tariffs, but perhaps not. So I'm going to, this week, I'm scheduled to read Federalist number 8, and I will come back next week with that. For this week, that's it. I'm still reading Dostoevsky. I'm reading Brothers Karamazov. I think last week when I was here, I was on page, like somewhere on page 40 something. I'm on page 257. I'm just about ready to start book 4, chapter 6. I'm really enjoying it. There's a lot of things. I'm not even putting tabs on this one. I was in the beginning and I took them all out because there were so many. I have so many highlights and notes, and actually I even have a note here on something that I'm not sure Dostoevsky is right about. So there's a point where he's talking about the Bible, the scriptures, saying that if one has even a grain of faith and says unto the mountain, remove hence into the sea, it'll go, without any delay and at one's first command. And then he goes on to explain what he believes that means, and I don't see it that way. So I put a little note here, and I'm going to go to my Bible and see if I understand it the same way. And then maybe we could have a discussion around that. So yeah, I am enjoying it. I have not gotten to the murder part. I'm starting to have feelings about who's going to do it, but I don't know. Are we ever going to find out who's going to do it? But yeah, for those of you who don't know, Dostoevsky, Brothers Karamazov is, in essence, to the outside world, it's a murder mystery. But the nuggets of wisdom in here are amazing. And it's going to take me a while. The book is, 985 pages. And I'm only on page, what did I say? 250, starting page 257. It's going to be a while. So I'll come back with updates. Am I still enjoying it? Am I not enjoying it? I am actually taking it on the train. So if someone attacks me, I can hit them with this. And I'm trying to read on the train. It's dense, so it's not the best place for me to read it. It's at times difficult to understand, and I have to read the passages more than once. But I feel like that's the only way I can get through it. So, yep, that's what I'm reading right now. This looks like a lot, but don't be fooled. And that's it. What are you guys reading? I hope you're having a great day. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next weekend. Bye.